Hi, welcome to the Gamesplainer. I'm Jeff the Gamesplainer, and today I'm Gamesplaining Parish New Eden. Parish New Eden is a 2 to 4 player game. It is set in a post-apocalyptic kind of Paris. Now, as soon as I say that, we always get images of what these post-apocalyptic games should feel like, what should be happening in them, and things like that. What is actually happening in this is there's a couple of different elements, but you're taking a die which shows one of 5 different coloured people on it. The 6th side is a wildcard side, and the position of where you take the die from will change what happens when you take that die. So if you take that die, you may take some food in, or you may be able to take in a different element or a different person little tile, or you may be able to get some cards which will give you some end game points, things like that. Once you've taken a die, it's the next person, so it goes around the table and keeps going around the table until all the dice have been taken. Once that happens, you're then using the dice that you have taken and any of the little chits of die faces, and you're saying, oh, I have 3 of the yellow. And whoever has the most in yellow will choose one of the cards that's face up within the yellow section first, and then the next person down, next person down, next person down. That card is a building that goes into your own area. It will have potentially some people with it. It will potentially have some other elements with it. Or it may just have people who are wasting time and making you feed them without really giving back. There's some other stuff that happens, but eventually you're trying to feed the guys. And you need to work out, how many guys do I have? Which spot does that put me in on the needing to feed space? If you can feed them, then you'll get some points. If you can't feed them, nothing negative happens. Let me say that again. Nothing negative happens. Sure, you don't get the points, but nothing negative happens, which really leaves a question mark of the post-apocalyptic idea. Usually what I've found with post-apocalyptic games is that if I can't feed everyone, then I'm going to lose some people, or I'm going to have to eat some people, or someone's going to have to, something negative happens. There might be a fight in the colony or something to that effect. So within this post-apocalyptic thing, the one that's jumping to mind is a Kickstarter that I backed and covered a while back called Outlive. And I was putting this on the table thinking, oh, this reads similar to Outlive. I'm moving things around, I'm gaining things, and then I need to feed my people. But it doesn't have any of the negative side that Outlive does. If you're wondering what I'm talking about, please have a look for my Outlive video. It's been a while since I've had that up, but it's one of those games that was on a Kickstarter and I believe became a game that people actually talked about and actually played, as opposed to just a game that went onto the shelf. If you understand the difference between the two. So this game is quite straightforward, is probably the best way to put it. Yes, it's post-apocalyptic, but it doesn't feel post-apocalyptic. That isn't necessarily a negative, it's just a little bit lighter than I would have expected from what's actually going on. The game itself plays relatively straightforward. The thinking of which piece to go for is important, because what you're really trying to do is make sure you've got more of a certain colour than other players at the table. So if there's only one guy in a certain colour, it's probably worthwhile grabbing that, because you're going to be the only person who can actually get cards from that set. Unless all the cards in that set are no good, and then you want to avoid that. Quite often what I found is that some of the cards are no good, some are really good. If there are no good cards and then just one really good card, it's a matter of you need to win within that colour in order to be able to get the really good card. If you don't get the really good card, you have to take the not very good card. And that hurts a little bit, because it can actually really drain your ability to do stuff when you've got the not really good card. Now, there is a listing on the back of the rules that has two types of cards and what each of the iconography things mean for those two types of cards. I haven't talked about that in the Gamesplay or Gamesplanation, but it's there. It will explain what things are. And realistically, what you've got is there's 5 different types of cards. So there's the yellow cards, which have things that will build up your abilities, and so they have specific iconography on them that will help you be able to work towards something. Or there might be an icon that says always take a food at the beginning of your turn, or there might be an icon saying instead of getting 1 card out of this pile you're going to take 2, things like that. And what they mean is written on the back of the book or the back of the rule book, and therefore is easily found and worked out. Oh, this is what that means. Remembering what the icons mean, it's not too difficult with this one, but I've found that I have always just double checked myself against the rule book on that. The other half of that back page is about these cards down the bottom that you're taking 3, you're choosing 1, and you're putting the other 2 back on the bottom of that stack. When you choose the card, it's either going to give you end game points for doing something, or having the most of something, or having the least of something. These are what are described on the back of the book. Or the other cards that are in that pile are other buildings that can be built. Now, they will be built as soon as you've got the combination of coloured people. And those coloured people come with the 3 middle colours and the end colour, actually. So there's each different deck has a different colour, and that colour lines up with the people that are on the dice, and it also has people of that colour. There are also grey people, which are just people who come along on the cards and are going to take from you without being able to give you anything. The other thing that you're going to need is farmers, and that's the last pile of cards, and that is how you'll feed your people. So for every farmer you have, that is like a food. So if you need to have, say, 6 food because you've got a population that's in that 6 space, and you've got 3 farmers, that's 3 of the food. You just need to have 3 tokens from the food space to fill up the gap, if that is what's happened. The other thing, it feels like there's a lot of stuff going on, isn't there? The other thing that I was kind of jumped over earlier was there are some points each round. So this happens just before you feed, but after you've taken all the buildings in. And it's called the event. And what happens is that there are 3 possible events happening. And those events are, you need to have 2 of this type of worker with their resource. You need to have 1 of this type of worker with its resource. If you can show that you've got both of them, so it's 3 guys and their 3 resources, then you'll get some points. If you don't have that, that's fine, you just don't get the points. And what I found is that you can work really hard to have enough stuff or the right stuff to be able to get those points, but if the card that you're hoping for isn't turned up, you're not going to be able to get it. There are 3 cards face up at the beginning of the game, or the beginning of each round, and there are 2 dice in that particular corner. So when one of those dice is taken, one of those 3 cards is flipped over. So we don't actually know which card we're trying to get until we get to the end of taking the dice from that space. As you can feel, there's a lot of stuff going on with that. And there's an element of math, I guess, with, oh, okay, I need to have the most of this type of character to get this building, because this building is going to enable me to hit that event and get past that really easily. But I'm going to have to make sure that I get enough of these, and that the event that I'm trying to get to is face up. And so you end up having to make that judgment call of which piece you go for, which area you go into, because of what is available in those areas, rather than, oh, I want to get more cards that give me endgame points. There's a heck of a lot of stuff going on with that, a heck of a lot of thinking to, oh, I want to do that. But within all that, it plays really straightforward. And that's really the thing that kind of keeps coming back to me. It actually plays really straightforward once you understand what you're doing. Just on that, the rulebook has a couple of little elements that aren't quite right or don't specifically read things out. that I needed to look up Board Game Geek for. Just be aware of it. The number of players, there's some little parts that can come out of your board or go back into your board. The number of players is spoken about in the rule book, but it's spoken about in the opposite language of what you actually need. So it actually gives you the wrong information in the rule book. It says with a 4-player game, you've got all of the spots open, and a 2-player game has those 2 spots on the end closed, but it's the other way around. On a 2-player game, all of them are open. On a 4-player game, they're all closed. On a 3-player game, it's just right with 1. And it's just a matter of the number of dice that are on there. And that's a really finicky, small thing, but it's something that's worthwhile noticing. So you don't get confused on that, just be aware of it. And so just, if it doesn't quite make sense, look up Board Game Geek. It has all the answers, as usually is the case. Look, I think I'll leave that there. Please go ahead and watch my Gamesplaned Gamesplanation to get a feel for how this game actually plays. If you have any comments or suggestions, please write them below. If you have any games that you'd like to be Gamesplaned, please shoot me an email to thegamesplainer@gmail.com. Follow me on Instagram and Twitter @thegamesplainer to keep up to date with the games I'm playing. Subscribe to my videos to keep up to date with the games that I'm gamesplaining. And until next time, enjoy gaming.